Okay, we have just gone live, and yes, you are watching the Purposeful Business live stream with myself, Lucille Devine. And a warm welcome to you if you are part of the audience. It's so exciting to actually share with other entrepreneurs and other coaches and mentors out there and share their expertise and share their knowledge with you. So I just want to give you some background with regards to why I started the Purposeful Entrepreneur Business live stream. This started back in 2019. And what happened is that I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, either they're in startup mode or they are existing businesses, and most of them feel so shy or so intimidated to actually go online. And a lot of them, what I found, never ever had a strategy to actually go out online and to showcase their businesses. So that's why I thought, you know what, there's a gap in the market. And especially during COVID-19 and the lockdown situation, I quickly discovered that I could actually have a live stream out online. And then I started to showcase all of these entrepreneurs that I was mentoring. It started to grow from there. And everybody that I started to notice either on my network or people that I was talking to also had a message to say. And that's exactly, or to share, should I say. And that's exactly what this program is about. It's designed for you, the audience. It's here to educate you, empower you, inspire you, motivate you, and to share some really valuable insights on how you can start living your life and building your dream business. So with that, how I would like you to be involved in the show is, number one, is first of all, say hi in the comment section below. Just let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and start to be a part of the show. So during the show, there's certain questions that might arise in your own thoughts and your own thought process. But also what we'll do is we'll stimulate some questions. And as we ask these questions with my guest today, all I ask is that you be a part of the show and also answer those questions by commenting below in the comment section. The other thing during this particular live stream is what I'd like you to do is share. If there's a story or something that comes to mind as you're watching the show, or you want to share a story of how you felt or what you're doing, please go ahead. Don't feel shy. Go ahead and share. Because I feel the more that we share as a community, as entrepreneurs, as SMEs, and as influencers, the more we gain from each other's knowledge. And you know what they say about experience. Someone else's experience can help you tenfold. It can help you move mountains and actually move into the power or into the knowledge that you need to, in order for you to actually raise your game, especially when it comes to building your own business. The other thing that I'd like you to do is connect. If there's someone that you feel that you resonate with during the show, whether it's one of my speakers that I'm hosting on the show, or whether it's myself, or whether it's somebody in the audience, go ahead and connect with those people. It's always a good idea because it can help to support you in the long run. Again, in the show, I love networking. It's one of my key things. It's what drives businesses. I strongly believe that. And if you want to go and share your link, go ahead and do that. We'd love to support your business going forward. All right, so in today's show, it is quite very significant right now for where we are and who we are as people. So we want to pose the question together with my guest, Anja van Beek, who is a purposeful coach of note. If you've ever gone to her website or if you've heard of her, you will absolutely be moved by some of the things that she is saying, some of the things she's sharing, and some of the things she's doing in her business. So today we're going to approach how to shape your vision for 2020. And this is where Anja is really going to have a look at how to start building your life after lockdown. What is the processes that you should be addressing? What should you be asking yourself? How should you navigate this journey after that kind of lockdown has really come full swing in our lives? How do you now navigate through this all? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Anja van Beek. She runs a coaching company called Anja van Beer Coaching. And yes, this is her second appearance on my show. A warm welcome to you, Anja, and thank you for joining the show.
Oh, hello, Lucille. It's lovely to be back. And thank you for the beautiful introduction. I love what you say, that networking is so important. And that's why I feel privileged to be part of your show, just to share some insights and some ideas with the audience.
Oh, fantastic. And the last time that you were on, it was a pity because our sound quality wasn't on par. But nonetheless, the people that did stay and did actually watch the show were so intrigued by the information that you gave. And again, I'm going to reiterate, it was so purposeful. That's why I love talking to you, Anja.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I have to say, the audience can see that I have my son's gamification or game earphones on. That was the best that I could lay my hands on. So yeah, yeah. But as you say, it's so important when we think of life that to lead a life that's purposeful and intentional. And I think when we look at the topic of today, which is the common direction of your business or the vision of your business, it's so important for us just to reflect a little bit on why did you start the business, or what was the impact that you dreamt of in the beginning. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing the slides. I would love to tell the audience what this is all about. So part of the work that I do is I'm agile people facilitator. And what that simply means is that we know in the future of work, it demands something different to what we used to operate from. And the Agile People Manifesto was actually created last year. I think it was in July. And that was a group of 19 people across the globe that got together in Sweden. Now, unfortunately, I did not have the privilege to be part of that group. I did not attend the conference there. But their work was the Agile Manifesto, or the Agile People Manifesto. And what the people can see on screen there is just 7 different pillars of what we believe is important for somebody to, if you think of your call to action, what you need to do. And the Agile People Principle, Lucille, we launched a book last week. That was awesome. So let me just briefly share about the book. So the book is 35 authors across the world, and most of us has never met face to face. And each one of us co-authored one of the chapters. So if you can see that the screen is quite small, but the chapter that I authored was this one here that links to the 3rd pillar. And I'm just going to read that. So it says, Agile people embrace diversity and inclusion, and they create communities where people feel safe and they truly belong. And when we think about common direction or the shared vision, that's where it almost plugs in, because it's so critical for everyone to understand, sure, where do I belong? Do I really belong to the organization? And even if we think of the people listening might be entrepreneurs and they might have a small team, but that sense of the belonging, that sense of, yes, where are we going, is critical for any business leader in today's life.
Wow, I love the way that you've used that, and how you've also said that the team that needs to be involved in that. It's that vision that you set up, and where are you going together in that team? It's so critical. All right, so take us through some of that understanding then, please, Anja, with regards to how do we do this? How do we set this up?
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I think it's the one where I talk a little bit about the north, or the true north. And if I can perhaps ask the audience to think of, if I have to ask them, where's north? So Lucille, if I have to ask you where you're sitting right now, where do you think is north? Because I would go like this. I think north is up here somewhere.
My north is always in front of my face somehow. That's how I see north.
Yeah, and I think if you ask my husband, he will tell you where I'm sitting. North is actually there, but I think it's, as you say, it's looking forward. Where are we going together? And that's why it's so critical for companies as well to talk about. But what is their true north? You will see there was a lovely, interesting article in the Harvard Business. No, it was McKinsey, that has shared some what they call the 5 trademarks of agile organizations. And the 5 trademarks was the strategy, the structure, the processes, the people, and the technology. And again, the first one where we talk about the strategy, that's where they speak about the true north. And I think that is why it's critical for any entrepreneur with their teams to consider, but does your team automatically choose to bring their talents and their energy towards that shared vision? And that's why it's so important for us to start with a vision. Some people use shared vision and purpose. So for today, I'm just going to talk about the vision, but you can definitely link the purpose of the organization in there as well. And it's really to understand that you make the most of each and every conversation to talk about what I call the why of the organization. So for today, we're not necessarily going to go into the structure and the processes and the rest, but perhaps the one that I can highlight, and I think looking at smaller organizations, luckily they don't struggle with that. But what we see is, if you look at companies, is that we have a flat structure. Companies is not that hierarchy anymore. It's more like a living organization where it's very easy to adapt and change what's needed to be successful going forward.
Yes, you're quite right with that, Anja. And the more I look at companies now, it almost becomes a lifestyle where they are all friends and family. They kind of integrate their entire company together. There's no more of that kind of structure behind closed doors. It's all open plan, and everybody sits together as a team. So it's quite right with what you're saying. I'm getting exactly what you're saying about this.
And I think the other thing, Lucille, what you've just highlighted now is so important, is for any business owner to think of what's the eco structure that I operate in. So we definitely focus on our client. We all know that the client is king, and whatever we do is to add value to our customers. Yet we do need to just have a look at what's the community that where we operate in, who else is in the ecosystem, who do I buy from, who do I purchase from. And I think with that in mind as well, because people, when they look at your business, they will actually see if they can connect with your purpose and your vision, because they choose to spend their money there. And I think that's why it's critical, not only for you to be mindful of your team, but also let me see who's in my ecosystem, and who do I either sell or buy from, or the community that I need to give back to.
Okay, very valuable questions there again. It's not only that structure internally, but it's that structure that expands itself externally as well. Key factors here. Thank you for that. Wow, good learning. All right, before we carry on, I just want to acknowledge we do have a viewer online, and yes, she is actually one of the ladies that loves to listen to the show, Millicent. Millicent actually owns a small travel company together with a partner. Hey, Millicent, thank you for joining us. Wonderful to have you on board. And just to give you some background, is that her company, because they're in the travel industry, travel has really suffered the most globally. But they very cleverly set up their business to become a membership. So the first of their kind in the country, that when they launched over 10 years ago, is what they did, and we talk about this as an eco structure as well, very cleverly set up a membership. So their members pay a monthly fee, a premium, to actually go on holiday. And most of their members go on holiday anything from about 4 to 5 times a year. And all they do is they pay a membership, and then depending on their contributions monthly, that depicts how many holidays they can go on to, or where they can actually go on holiday. So when it comes to that ecosystem externally, I know that their business model is one of a kind and it works very well. That's how they've managed to sustain their business during this lockdown.
Yeah, and I have to give kudos to Melissa, and well done for that, because I also have close family members that is in the travel industry, and as you've pointed out, I mean, they were hard hit during the COVID-19, and I think they still are with the borders that's closed, and I think that is such a excellent example of you need to take whatever the world is giving you and just make something do with that. And I think that's why, if you know the common direction, it's a lot easier for you to all pull your weight. Because what we often see, and I don't know if you can relate with that, Lucille, is that we sometimes, as entrepreneurs or the leader of a small business, think that you need to come up with all the answers. And that's definitely not the case. You actually need to rely on the people that's part of your team, because they have so many wonderful ideas, and they can innovate in such a beautiful way that you have never thought of. But again, what's that common direction, that shared vision, that we all pull towards the right, at least the right North Star.
Yes, yes. So just wanted to share something with you of interest, Anja, is that last week I was chatting to a whole group of SMEs and SMMEs, and most of these entrepreneurs have been in existing businesses well over 2 years. Some of them were in the food and beverage industry, and some of them were in the retail industry. One or two of them were in travel as well. So some of those sectors have been hit, especially during lockdown. I mean, even our restaurateurs who have suffered. But the why I want to mention this, and it goes upon what you're saying, is where's your true north? What some of these entrepreneurs did, because I took them through a training of uncovering vision, was they went back to their team and they reignited that passion and fire. They redeveloped the reason why they're in business and connected it to their team. So much so that I had a few of them come back, beg your pardon, and they said to me, you know what, Lucille, we feel like a family. It feels like a tribe. It feels like we can do the impossible. So just that simple mind shift of including your team and finding out what are their pain points, what are the customers complaining to them about, and bringing all of that into the pool makes a huge significant difference in how you measure your north again. Beautifully put with regards to what you're doing and what you are also sharing with the world. Okay, fantastic.
Great.
All right. I see we've got a couple of new viewers. A warm welcome to you. You are watching the Purposeful Business live stream. Today, my special guest is Anja van Beek. And Anja runs a coaching business and a phenomenal leader of note. She's taken everything that she's learned from the corporate industry and now applied it into her own business. She's a thought leader. And the fact that we are talking about Argyle people right now and the agility to move within out this lockdown and the situation that has globally taken over, and now to really find your vision in business is exactly what we are going to be talking about this morning. So Anja is going to share with us a couple more insights with regards to that. If you have any questions or you want to leave a comment, please feel free. We'd love to acknowledge you. The show is developed and designed around you. So if you have any opinions, any questions, please go ahead, pop that into the comment section right now. We're going to move on. All right, so after finding our true north, what and understanding our vision, understanding that we need to bring our team into that vision and to readdress that vision, where do we go from here? What other things should we be asking, Anja?
Yeah. So, Lucille, seeing that we're using the PowerPoint, I just want to echo what you say. For me, it's a lot better if we can. Sorry, we have builders at the site, and they're hammering out here, so I hope it's not too much of a noise. But just to echo what you said, is for the viewers just to ask the question, because sometimes they have something that they want to ask, and we might address it at a later stage. But we're flexible, and we can, jump around. But perhaps if you can just continue with the slideshow, I think one of the slides that I have on there with the 3 circles is what Simon Sinek is so popular and he's so well known. But the 3 circles of starting with the why, and I think that is why we've mentioned that now already. But for each entrepreneur to think that when you're working with teams, to consider that so often we want to tell the people, how are you going to do that, or what needs to be done, but start with the why. That's a critical point to start with. And I love to use the story or the metaphor of the NASA space race. And I mean, if we think of common direction, this is not something new. This is not something that that is only like one of the other principles that we talk about is boundary spanning or cross-functional collaboration, but the common direction is not something new. So the NASA space story, why I love to share that story, is in the 60s when President Kennedy told the nation, okay, we're going to put a man on the moon. And in the end, I mean, it was Russia and America. In the end, the Americans were successful. They had the first man on the moon. And what was significant is when the people visited NASA to have a look, okay, but share with us, what is your success story? What did you do differently? One of the janitors who was, as we know, responsible for cleaning the building and the facilities. And when one of the clients came to him and said, but please share with me, what are you doing here? I love his response. He said, I'm not here to clean, or he didn't say that. He actually just said, I'm here to help them put a man on the moon. And that for me is the impact of starting with a why, because they inspired, they feel that they belong to something a lot bigger than themselves. And that's why I agree with Simon, starts with a why, because that is so important.
Yeah, that is a powerful story. And again, it just goes right down to the roots of how to build a team. And to look at all of your employees, not just the office or the sales team or whatever the case may be, is to include everyone from the person who is working in cleaning right up to the CEO, because the more that support happens, it's true what you say, especially when it comes to Simon Sinek. So for those of you who don't know about Simon Sinek, he is a wonderful thought leader as well. And he talks about adding purpose, vision, as well as passion into your business. And he always says, you've got to start with the why. The why is the reason why you have customers. Your customers buy into your why first, way before they buy into the how or the what. And that's one of the key fundamentals that a lot of businesses need to start to shift. And I agree with you, Anja. It's taking that janitor and he also getting behind that and saying, you know what, I'm here to help to put a man on the moon. That's exactly it, because that is the big picture, the big vision. And he's already bought into the why. And that's why he will do his job absolutely 150% better than anyone else. So I think, yes, it's so true with what you're saying.
And I like what you've mentioned about some people will say, but okay, you know what, where do we start? If we don't have a vision, or I'm too small, I haven't formalized anything like that. And for me, it's important for people to note is that it's the importance of having those discussions. It's important about, as you say, involve the whole team when you talk about what's the vision, what is it that we want to achieve, because the next slide is actually separating or showing you the difference between a purpose and a vision and a mission, because a lot of the time people say, what are these words? What do they mean? So I don't know if you want to, just have a look at these 3, because then the audience will understand that if you think of the purpose, why do you exist? So it's the question of, why did you start your business? If you think of, you've mentioned people being around or being in business for 2 years, I want them to go back and connect to, but what did you start? Why did you start that? What do you think is the value that you can bring to the world? And that is what the purpose is all about. The vision part is where you dream big. So that's almost like your, what do you want to achieve in life? So that's your big, hairy, audacious goal. And I always say that if your vision, if it does not scare you, you need to go and have a look at that. Is it big enough? And then the mission, that is the how. So that is how we're going to do that. What processes are we going to follow? What systems are we going to use if you have systems, etc. But I think for me, the important part is include your team in the purpose and the vision. Have those discussions. An easy starting point, Lucille, will be to think of what is important to you. A lot of the time people say, if you just have a look at the story of your business, have a look at the highs and have a look at the lows and see what story that is telling you, because that sometimes spark the ideas as well. I always say when
Oh,
I
to
work,
have a look at the highs, have a look at the lows. That's beautifully put, Anja. It's exactly that. And this is something that I often talk about, especially when I've got small groups in front of me, because they'll come in and their heads are hung low and, we have to do this again. We have to get onto this hustle again. And look at the highs and look at the lows. It's when that is so important. One customer or gaining another loyal customer by referral, or those small little successes need to be celebrated. You've got to look at the highs. And then also looking at the lows is understanding, instead of saying, oh, we're in a low, we're not earning, shift that mindset and ask, why are we in this situation? What other things must we do in order to get out of the situation? What can we implement now that can help us to move forward? I love that, Anja. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think, Lucille, what I always love about talking to you is I think you mentioned something and then it just sparks my mind. And there's two practices that I want to share with the entrepreneurs, especially if they have teams. So the one, as you say, it's so critical to celebrate successes and it's critical to give public recognition. So it's so easy when you're a smaller team, but make a habit of giving, it's not positive feedback, it's recognition, to say, well done, this is what you've accomplished and I'm so proud, or whatever it might be. But do it publicly, because so often it might be that you do it on a one-on-one basis, but perhaps when the client is in the office, or when I don't know what their setups are, but try to give the recognition in a public way. And the other thing that I think a tip that they can take on is have a look at I want to call it a failure wall or a learning wall, because so often we have post-its all around the office, but perhaps there's some value in considering having a wall where you share lessons learned. Remember what you've now just mentioned about reframing your mindset when there's a low, but have it on a wall where everyone can see that. So if you have had a failure, instead of thinking of it as a failure, saying, this is the lesson that I learned and I want to share it with the whole team. So again, it's open, it's in the public, nothing to be ashamed about. It's really a journey. And this is just one of the parts of the journey.
Yeah. Anja, as you're saying that this is the part of the journey. Something has also sparked up in my head as well. And it's some learning that I've just recently gone through. And I do a lot of shadow work as well. And I was only exposed to this last year because I went through a huge a battle, and I had to come to terms with where my life was at that particular point. And exactly a year ago, actually a year and a month ago, and I was kind of exposed to the darker parts of who I was, and I understood that I needed to actually heal that part of me, because it was kind of coming out into my business as well, and it was causing more damage than it was actually doing any positive. So what happened is I had to acknowledge it first and foremost, because I was aware of it already. I had to acknowledge it. And as soon as I acknowledged it, something in the universe just started opening up. I had more and more people come towards me. I started to go and search online, and every search that I had helped me to heal that much better. And I think that is the part of looking at your business. There are going to be dark moments. There are going to be moments of loss. But instead of dwelling in the loss is to look for the solution. And I think that's exactly what is happening right now across the world. I think COVID had a lot to do with that. And I think for those of us who use COVID and the lockdown as a space to start to heal and to look inward and to be introspective and use self-development, really be honest with yourself, to work through those emotions, we have taken a step tenfold forward. And I feel right now that's what's happening in the globe. We have this awareness, and I like to call it spiritual awareness because of my beliefs. You might call it something else, but it is awareness of where you are, whether it's the dark and the light, but there is a meeting point in the middle, and you are both. You have to celebrate both. And that's what kind of shifted my vision when it came to my mindset. What's your take on that with regards to looking at both negative and positive? I know that we've spoken a little bit about it, but what are the things that you practice or you give advice on when it comes to actually implementing this into business?
Yeah. So I think just to echo what you say, I think when you look at life, and perhaps it's the conditioning of how we've been brought up, but it's almost as if you need to focus on the positive, and that you need to embrace that, and that's almost what you want to show the world. And again, similar to what you say, is if you have a look at the down, to just understand that life is not about up. I mean, it's like a curve. For every up, there will be a down. I think of the heartbeat, the rhythm of your heart. And as you say, that's very similar for any business, that there will be ups and that there will be downs. And the tip that I can leave with the audience is to remain curious. So first of all, not to judge. First of all, not to overthink it. When your business is in a downslide, let's have a look, be curious. What's happening? What has changed? Has my client shifted? Am I focusing on their needs? What is the center? Am I the center, or are they the focus of my attention? And I think by remaining curious and by asking the questions, that is how you will get to the new learning. So it's again reframing. But I think the critical part, Lucille, as you've said, is not to judge. I mean, what I have learned is, if there's something that you need to see, you've used the word the darker side or the shadow side. If you ignore that, it's going to persist until you've learned this lesson. Then you will shift. And then when you shift, there's going to be another up and down. And then let's have a look and be curious. So I think my tip would be remain curious, ask the right questions. But again, for me, it's important to have a look at, is there a pattern? And I mean, that's the same principle, irrelevant if it's the personal capacity or in your business starting up.
Okay, beautiful. Again, look at the pattern. Beautifully put there with regards to that. Thank you, Anja. All right, I see we've got a couple of more people who've hopped on. A warm welcome to you. We're talking with Anja van Beek today, and Anja has her own coaching business where she helps as a corporate as well as entrepreneurs actually navigate their way through business. Not only that, today we're talking about how to shape your vision for 2020. We're talking post-lockdown. How are you going to reshape that vision? One of the key factors that I feel that we all need to do, and Anja was talking about, is your true north. That true north is that strategy part. And within the strategy, one of the main things and the first things that you've got to do is you've got to look at your eco-structure. And you start with your internal eco-structure first before you look outward. In that, as Anja was saying with regards to what we were going through, is that true north and that eco-structure will help you to quickly identify your vision, your purpose, and your mission. And as she was saying, the very first thing that you've got to look at is your why. Why are you in business? Why have you decided to go into business? And why do you even have all of your employees around? What are they going to be bringing to the table? But moreover, when you actually employ them and bring them into this big vision, that they sit down and they also bring in their parts or their, what's the word I'm trying to look for, their energy into that vision, what their meaning. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Anja. Once they bring their meaning into the vision, you can start to build a vision and a huge purpose going forward to your true north. It's been beautiful. Fantastic. All right, Anja, what else can we discover? And what are the other things that we need to ask ourselves with regards to this, especially when we're building businesses?
Yeah, so I think perhaps we can briefly touch on why is a common direction so important during times of change and during times of uncertainty. And that is now especially for people who works with teams. But even if you only yourself in the business, we see that there's almost like what we call a predictable dynamic when people go through change. So when you think of this shared vision, the purpose, remember that during times of change, it is critical. So let me perhaps share another story with you because I think that illustrates the point so nicely. I assume that most of the audience has read The Wizard of Oz. So that's such a beautiful book that illustrates the impact of what I call the invisible leader. Because if you think of the shade or the common direction in The Wizard of Oz, it was to find the witch, and that was what was driving the people towards the same goal. But what was interesting, if you read the story, is that different times in the story they took turns to take the lead, depending on each and everyone's strength. And I think, again, if you think of the invisible leader, that is what will happen if your team is clear on where you need to go, because you might be the leader, but this person next to you might be stronger. And when it's something that is focused on their strength, they will take the lead. And that's how we will support. I think you use the words to dance with one another. And it's almost as if this is the dance that we have as a team. Now I'm taking the lead, then I'm stepping back. But the beauty of that, if you think of The Wizard of Oz, is that each one of them found something in the journey. I think the Tin Man found his heart, and the lion found his courage, and the Scarecrow found his brain, and Dorothy, I think, found the way back to her family. And I want you to think of that metaphor when you talk about common direction. But Lucille, perhaps if you can just add on 2 slides. There's some notes that I want the audience just to have a look at. Because if you think of change and uncertainty, you will find, you can actually go on to the next one as well. You will find that what we see during times of change is that teams or people feel that sense of loss. And I think we all have experienced that firsthand, that with COVID, suddenly there was that sense of loss, simply because what you used to as your normal suddenly just disappeared. There's also people feel very disorientated and uncertain, and even a less of confidence. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think most of the entrepreneurs that I have dealt with said suddenly, sure, I felt a lack of confidence. And the drain of energy is to remember that during times of change, it takes a lot more effort to adjust to the new normal, and you might try harder, but it's almost as if you not necessarily get to the result. So it's as if you have to put a lot more in, and perhaps not the results that you were hoping for. And again, when you look at these things, that is why common direction in my mind is so important for your team to know, even though it's challenging, even though we're going through a difficult time, this is where we're going. That is what we want to achieve. And that's the difference that we're making in the world.
Wow. These are very powerful points. And as you're going through them, Anja, I'm kind of bringing it back to where I was. And, even pre-lockdown, there was a sense of loss for even me, because we had this kind of announcement, and we were expecting to go into a lockdown, but we didn't know what to expect. And even the entrepreneurs that I was mentoring at that time, and that's why they also expressed to me, we don't know how to do business. Some of them who had retail stores were saying to me, how are we going to do business? We have to go in lockdown. I don't know if we can manage. It's that sense of loss. Loss of making money, loss of your team, loss of even being in the office with other people on an emotional basis. That was a huge, huge sense of loss for them. And then also with regards to that uncertainty, what was happening? I mean, are we going to go on a full lockdown? Is it going to last for a month? Is it going to carry on? As we were witnessing what was happening globally, I think Italy at that time was really, really bad, and there were so many deaths. And at that time, a lot of people, especially in business, were saying, how are we going to do business? And taking that loss of confidence really hit. Although I think for the first maybe week or so, a lot of people went back home and they started to spring clean and they cleaned everything, and then they started to watch movies. So they kind of were distracted from what was going on. But as we were going deeper and deeper within this and the lockdown, there was a huge sense of loss. I know one of my other family members, my sister-in-law, one of the top travel agencies that she worked for, within the second month of lockdown, they retrenched her. And I remember her saying to me, I feel so lost. I don't know. I used to wake up in the morning, get dressed and go to work because I love what I do. I love serving my customers. And now I've got no point of direction. And she went into a depression over it because of that loss. And one of the fundamental things was that she drained all of her energy because she wasn't prepared for that kind of transition and that retrenchment that happened with her. So I can see and notice all of these points. The other thing is that, yes, the skepticalness comes in as well, because what I felt as well during the lockdown was the government was saying A and delivering C. And a lot of people had this discontentment that was happening. And out on social media was one of the places where they actually expressed this. And there was a lot of people that were kind of building these groups on social media that were really targeting the government and really, really upset about what they were going through as individuals. And again, the beauty around that is that there was this empowerment movement that happened. So even there was this kind of skepticalness and people were saying and throwing down their arms and saying, enough is enough. This empowerment movement started to happen and people were now questioning things. And I love that because, again, it comes into self-preservation. It drills right into that because people want to preserve their lifestyle, themselves, as well as their family. And all of that started happening around that period in time. Now that we're coming out of lockdown, I feel like a lot of people have a sense of, okay, well, we're kind of now shifting through the waters at the moment. And there's a lot of people that are feeling more ignited to actually live day by day. Although it's slightly different because this is the new norm. But and wearing masks and going out online and doing work from home, perhaps, and all of those kinds of things. It's a new norm, but there is the sense of, okay, everything is starting to kind of come back to normal. All right.
And I think that is
okay,
why. Sorry, Lucille, and I think that is why it's so critical for people to focus on the vision or to focus on the purpose. I remember that during lockdown, very early on during lockdown, for me, what gave me a sense of meaning was to connect to, okay, so what is my business all about? And on the one side, it's really to help HR teams and leaders to build that business where they can thrive. And I immediately started what we call the HR and leader think tank, where we supported that community. And for me, it was almost taking the focus away from myself and focus on what value can I still add, even though it's COVID, even though it's the business world has changed, even though business suddenly just went quiet. I think there's a lot of value to connect to your purpose and your vision.
Beautiful, beautiful, wonderfully put. And again, that you even started a think tank and targeted all of those particular people in corporate. It was just, again, that way to connect. And it was about adding value and just listening. And that's one of the key things why I also started these live streams, was to share some knowledge and to not only entertain, but to educate and empower a lot of my followers who often look for some answers, because a lot of them went through exactly this scenario. So beautifully put. Okay, Anja, is there anything else that you're wanting to mention? We're coming towards the end. Is there any other slides that you'd like me to put up for you?
So I think the one that I just want to, perhaps just the next one to formalize everything, because that's just 3 tips for people when they think of vision. 3 last thoughts that I want to leave with the audience. And I think it's all about authenticity. A lot of the times when I work with teams, people say, you know what, I can't relate to the vision. I can't relate to the purpose, because what my leader is doing and saying is vastly different of what they saying the business is all about. So I think when you talk about vision, just remember to be authentic, to think what the DNA of your organization is, simply because it's such a popular topic at the moment. A lot of the time people are doing it for the sake of doing that. So just be true to what's authentic for your business. I also think it's a reminder for you guys, especially if you have teams, to turn the message into a constant message, because a lot of the time you would leave that for when there's a team building or when people come into the shop and there's some nice posters on the walls. It's not about that. It's really about that constant message. It's almost like that golden thread throughout the business. And the last one, I think, is to remember to link your people to your business, because each and every individual crave meaning and belonging. And that is such an easy way to make them feel as if they belong. So if we think of our neuroscience, that's one of the things that people want, that sense of belonging. And what a beautiful way to do that, by your vision and your purpose. And I think with
fantastic.
that, I'll leave it there.
So these are the 3 steps that you need to implement into your business. They're key steps that can help you, again, to find that true north. As Anja has said, it is so important for us to do that. And to find that why, to find the vision, and to include all of your team members in finding and uncovering that vision. It is such a key going forward. All right, I do see that we have someone else that has popped on. Hi, Haley Joy. Thanks for joining us today. Although we are coming to the end of our show, I'd like to take this moment just to thank our audience. And I would like to reiterate, if you are watching the replay, just to go ahead and just let me know in the comments below that you're watching the replay. It's just a way for me to actually just see how far these videos go. I know today we're on YouTube as well as Facebook. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. For the audience members that have popped on past, it's been my honor to actually share the beautiful teachings of Anja van Beek, who runs a coaching business of her own. Her main target audience is HR people, as well as entrepreneurs, I might add, because this training is exactly what I would definitely position in front of SMMEs. Because this is good. It gives you the foundations to build your vision for 2020. So I would like to appeal to you, if this video has had any value and you feel that the knowledge needs to be shared, or you have a person in your network or a person in particular that you're thinking of that needs to listen and hear the insights that Anja has graciously shared with us this morning, I'd love to ask you just to go ahead and share it. On Facebook, there's a bottom share button right below on the right-hand side. On YouTube, you'll see there's a share icon also at the bottom of the video. Please go ahead and share the video either on your own wall, or you can send the direct link directly to someone's email or inbox, or even to their Facebook Messenger. The beauty around these videos is that they don't need to come back to the actual wall, the space where you've watched the video. it will actually just pop up onto their messenger or onto their email, and they can watch it directly in that space where it's safe. The other thing that I would like to reiterate is to please support Anja. You can go and do that. I'm going to just pop her website out on the actual screen for you to have a look-see at. Go and visit her website. Go and see what she offers with regards to courses. They are phenomenal. I mean, I often will come to Anja's website just to consume some of the things that she puts out there. Even the blogs and the articles are high value. So please go and visit www.anjavanbeek.co.za. And if you want to book her for a coaching session, go ahead and do that. You will find a lot of value just by actually being in business with her and asking for her counsel. All right, that's it from me. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Anja, I'm going to ask you as normal. This is one section of the show where I'd like you as my special guest to have the last word. What's the last word for today, please?
So I think the last word for me, for the entrepreneurs out there, is when we think of spring, I'm thinking of growing and hope. And my wish for you is that your businesses will grow into whatever the reason, your why, and that you will have a wonderful impact. Don't second guess yourself. It's a journey. So just have fun along the way.
Oh, beautiful. Don't second guess yourself. It's a journey. Fantastic. Anja, it has been my absolute pleasure once again to have you on board and to share your knowledge. Thank you so much for taking the time today to actually share your insights and to be with my audience. I'm looking forward to actually interviewing you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucille. It was lovely being on your show, and thank you for the opportunity. Stay safe.
Cheers.
Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.